Good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Joy of SharePoint webinar. I should probably say good afternoon too, depending on where in the world you are. Today, we're going to talk about training, and not just training like classroom training, but also resources that are available to you to help you along your journey with SharePoint and all of the various applications that make up Office 365. The SharePoint community is very large and very friendly. So there are a lot of avenues to help out there, not just official or formal training. So let's jump into it. I hope you guys have your coffee or caffeine beverage of choice available as we get going. So first, we're going to look at a couple of numbers. I'm not really a numbers person, but I thought we would start out being legitimate with this, right? So I did some research, and the numbers don't lie, honestly. 2 out of 3 employees report that training plays an important part in their decision to either stay in the job they're in or to even take on a new position within a company where they already are. And that was a survey done by Intercall's Digital Media Services. 2 out of 3, so that's a pretty significant number. 2015, a survey was done by Skillsoft. That shows that 40% of staff says the amount of training offered by a company influences an individual's decision to accept the position. So if training doesn't really come up in hiring conversations, there's a chance a company is missing out on an opportunity to acquire some good skill and a good fit for their company. And that same Skillsoft survey showed that 71% of the workers between the ages of 16 and 24 show that training is essential for them to be able to develop the skills that relate to their job. And that makes sense, right? Especially that age demographic there. We're talking about a young hire coming in, probably starting on their career path. So they don't have experience to fall back on, right? They're coming in fresh and are being assigned a role that they need to grow into. So they're looking to the company to guide them and to prepare them for being able to do the job they're going to get paid to do. I think that speaks volumes, but now I'm going to just click on over and get away from the numbers. Mark Rackley's on the phone with us. He's probably more of a numbers guy than I would be, him being a developer and all that. But training, just let's be honest, it's going to make life easier. We've all been in the situation at work where, and you can probably even say this quote with me, where you get thrown in to the deep end of the pool. Sometimes you get floaties and sometimes you don't. And that's kind of how you earn your stripes, right? At one point or another, you're going to be given a task and your instructions are going to be to figure it out. It happens. We've all been there. You can't avoid that. But it's frustrating. It's frustrating when day in and day out, your job instructions are to figure it out. Office 365 and SharePoint Online can pose a very interesting twist to that because it's constantly changing. And Microsoft isn't shy about that. They're proud of it, and they should be. They're adding a lot of innovation frequently. But if we take our users and throw them into a situation where week to week they're being confronted with something new and something different, that has the potential to add on to that frustration and an uncertainty because they're not really sure if they're doing it right. Is this the best way to do it? Or, well, there's an upload button here, so I guess I'll click that. Oh, okay, so this is how I get my stuff into SharePoint. And they roll with it. And you'd be surprised, I will say, the number of conversations I have in any given month with folks that think that Explorer View is the primary way to get multiple items uploaded into SharePoint. It is a way, absolutely, but they don't know that drag and drop is there. Run into a lot of people that are still uploading things one at a time or going to Explore View. Not that there's anything wrong with Explore View, but it's kind of an old-fashioned way to work with SharePoint. And they're missing out on maybe, I'm sorry, Microsoft, Mark, Stephanie, don't tell Microsoft I said this, but they are missing out on the opportunity to maybe use a little bit better browser like Firefox or Chrome. Those work really well with SharePoint Online now. You know, back in the olden days on-prem, you wouldn't have heard me say that. But times are changing, and the SharePoint technologies are changing day by day. So when we give people some sort of training, we give them the chance to know better and more innovative ways to do their job. And if you're in SharePoint Online and you're utilizing the Office 365 tools, it might be a good idea to offer some follow-up training, even if it's just a training newsletter that goes out, just to let people know, hey, this is what's new since you took training 6 months ago. These are the 15 latest and greatest things that have come along. That's a big advantage for your employees, because the better equipped, the better trained the employees are, the better that job performance is going to be. They're going to have higher job satisfaction. They're going to have better job performance, and that's going to pay off in efficiency. In fact, I was talking with one of my colleagues this morning. He said, you know, training is one of the things, he's in sales, that companies don't want to spend money on. And we're trying to save money these days, right? That's just the motto of IT. We all wear multiple hats. The training budget is usually the most neglected budget. But we're kind of selling ourselves short there, because there is a direct return on investment when efficiencies are gained. Right? Let's look at lean manufacturing. It's all about gaining efficiency, running lean. Well, if you know how to do your job properly and effectively, there's going to be a return on investment in efficiency. It's kind of a obvious thing when you say it, but sometimes it's hard to get the check signers to really buy into that mentality. But the good news is, you don't always have to buy in, because there are resources out there in the community, great ones. Like I said, the SharePoint community, I guess I should say the Microsoft community, is very large, very sharing, very open. I've just got some URLs on the screen. If anyone is interested in getting the slide deck from me, we can absolutely arrange that. And this video will be going to our YouTube channel. But support.office.com has become Microsoft's kind of training site. So when you go there, it'll ask you which product you're interested in, and it'll take you to training on that application. It's really nice. There are video snippets, there are articles, good stuff there. Blogs.office.com, great site. You will find the latest and greatest information on any Office 365 app, whether it's Power Apps, Flow, SharePoint, Teams. It's out there. In fact, I spent a good chunk of this morning reading through the Teams blogs just to catch up, make sure I knew what was going on in the world. Techcommunity.microsoft.com, another great space to go. Not only is that focused on training, but there are links to like the presentations from Ignite. You can kind of find where Microsoft is going out and having training in certain cities. Really good resource. So I would encourage you, if you're just looking around, trying to find a place to get your bearings, to start reading up on what's coming. You know, maybe you've not made the move fully to Office 365 yet. These are great places to really get good, up-to-date information, because there's nothing more frustrating than going out to Google or Bing and searching for something. You find an article and it's dated 2014 or 2015. In reality, that's not that long ago. In the world of Microsoft, that's ages and ages ago. So these sites here, you will make sure you're going to relevant current information. I'm actually going to share my screen because, oh, we've got it right up there in my Skype conversation with Stephanie. She sent this to me moments before the webinar started. I noticed today I was being nosy and seeing who all we had registered before we started. And I saw a lot of .edu email addresses out there. Don't worry, I will not be spamming you. But I wanted to make sure, or she did, when I mentioned that to her, that you guys saw this website. I don't have a login because I'm not an educator. I haven't even tried yet because I didn't have time before the webinar. But I've got a feeling if you are an educator or in the education sector, you should be able to get a login to this pretty easily. So courses, resources, let me use my mouse. Yeah, educator programs, Skype in the classroom, toolkits. So there may be some really good, in fact, it looks like there really is, good resources for our educators out there. And I noticed Teams has recently released a lot of stuff to help educators integrate with Teams inside the classroom. So I wanted to make sure to call that out. Let me get back out to my presentation. And again, I'm sorry, that was education.microsoft.com. Okay. So if going out to the internet is not your cup of tea, and you're like me and you kind of like stuff to come to you, you don't want to have to go look for it, I encourage you, let's come over here, to get social. And there may be some eye rolling or shaking of heads. In fact, many years ago there was, if you said anything about social media to people in the IT industry, right? You know, it's not just about cat videos though. I joined Twitter several years ago when I became a SharePoint farm administrator because I saw that that was the place to see what people were saying about updates, right? You don't want to be the first to install updates on a server. That's just craziness. You're going to hurt. So I would go and I would watch and see what people were saying. And when I noticed a lot of the pain and suffering had subsided, time to roll out updates, right? I mean, I was the SharePoint army of one, so I kind of had to be careful how I approached things. But go to Twitter. That's my favorite. I love Twitter. Find a hashtag. I've got SharePoint up there. I actually just made this slide yesterday, hashtag procrastination. And I did a search just because I was curious on hashtag SharePoint. And at that time, it brought me to 521 tweets about hashtag SharePoint. So get out there and see what people are talking about or tweeting about. You could do hashtag SharePoint, Microsoft, hashtag Microsoft Teams, or find those Microsoft accounts and follow those. The Microsoft Teams account tweets quite a bit, as does Outlook. I found that out because I was just being silly and sarcastic. And I put a tweet out the other day that said, thanks at Outlook for letting me know I was 17 days late for a meeting. Because honestly, at that point, should you even let me know? It's over. You can't do anything about it. You can't even ask anyone about it now. It's been over 2 weeks. And within half an hour, whoever was behind the curtains of at Outlook was direct messaging me going, do you have a problem? Is there something we can help you with? I thought that was fantastic. And it shows the power of social media. And I was like, oh, no, we're good. I was just a slacker, and I obviously hit snooze instead of dismiss, right? We've all been there. So not only can you follow Microsoft accounts to get really good information or help by accident, you can find community members, follow them because we tweet a lot. At Pate Group, my dear company, anytime any of us in the company have a new blog, the at Pate Group account tweets out the link, right? So that information is going to come to you. If any of our people are going to be at conferences or speaking at SharePoint Saturdays, you'll see at Pate Group tweeting about it. And I've also got Stephanie and Mark's Twitter handles out here too, because we're all constantly reading and exploring and learning about our products. You know, we want to know what we're talking about when we're talking about it. So Stephanie and Mark are really good about when they find a good article, they tweet it or retweet it. So you've got people out there, it's almost like crowdsourcing in a way, right? Other people are finding this information for you. All you have to do is click the link to read it. It is a fantastic platform. YouTube is good too. I've said that to people and you get that funny look. So I'm not just talking about cat videos, right? There are training videos out there on YouTube. We have one with Pate. Microsoft has many. So pretty much if it can be done or someone's ever wondered how to do it, there's a video out there on YouTube. Some are better than others, right? We know this. But why not let someone else put that initial blood, sweat, and tears into it, and then you can watch how they figured it out and go run with it within your corporation. It's perfect. And you're not just reading about it, but you're seeing it in action. And I think that's very helpful. Excuse me. So we've got resources, right? There are channels available to us. So we take in all that information, we digest it, and we start getting ideas. That's the fun part, right? We start dreaming up our ideas of how we're just going to go run with this and it's going to be awesome. But where do we start, right? It can be intimidating to voice those ideas out into the wild. Especially one of my dear colleagues, Stephen Wilson, has actually said that he prefers working with servers because end users scare him, right? That's legit. There's a scary group of people out there on the other side of the computer screens. Sometimes we talk to them in the hall at work and sometimes we don't. But perhaps it's time for a conversation. We can't know what our organization needs without talking to the organization. And I know as IT people, we kind of think we do, right? We almost have that same train of thought that doctors get accused of having, that God complex, because we know. We do know a lot, but we don't know how finance needs that workflow to really work. We can guess most of it, but we can't get it all, right? And sometimes our users come to us and they're using things in really weird ways. We've all answered the phone, hey, how come X, Y, Z doesn't equal Q, right? And we just, it's like a dog that turns his head when he hears a weird noise. You're like, why? Why would you ever think that would work? But we didn't know they were doing it because we've never had the conversation to really uncover the needs that exist. And there are a lot of needs out there. I'll tell you this, I started my SharePoint journey in a corporation that decided in 2007 that we were going to have SharePoint. Awesome, right? We're SharePoint people. We love that. But, you know, that was a pretty big deal back then. There was a pretty big check associated with that. And these very few people ramrodded it through the organization. One guy in IT set it up, built sites for every department in the organization. And this was a large organization. We were in the defense industry. We did custom software for the government. We did proposal and program management for the government and manufacturing. So pretty big operation. And just, you know, the manager of every department got a link that said, here's your SharePoint site. Okay. Now what? I actually took that experience and I have a presentation I do at SharePoint Saturdays from time to time. And it's called Thou Shalt Use SharePoint, because that's the point of view that was had, right? You're going to use SharePoint. Here's your site. Go forth and prosper. One of three things happens with that. The biggest thing that we saw happen was that everyone had a site and very few people used them. I went back 3 years later, and there were 3-year-old sites with not document 1 in them. Okay, so the company wrote a really big check for nothing. Scenario 2, oh, okay, here's a document library. Oh, it's kind of like the file share. Oh, okay. And they just dumped their file share into that one document library called shared documents. And then they hated it because they can't find anything. How is this good? SharePoint sucks. It doesn't do anything. What's the point of this? All right, there's scenario 2. And the least common, but the one that gives you a glimmer of hope scenario, was those few intrepid people that love bright and shiny. It's new, it's bright and shiny. Oh my goodness, I can do this. I can figure something out. And they go and they research and they go and they read and they poke and they actually do something with it. Now, my my excited new shiny person, she immediately went and got like the SharePoint designer book and learned how to do all this stuff. And the day Microsoft announced it was a free download, I thought, oh my gosh, what are we going to do with her? So we had to go turn that off for her. But hey, at least she was trying, right? So when you start thinking about how you're going to approach this in your organization, think about those 3 scenarios. We want to embrace those intrepid people, right? If you're sitting here and you've got some folks' faces and names popping into your head, recruit them, right? Put them on a list. Those are some of the first people you want to talk to because they're going to be excited about it and they're going to help grow that excitement in their departments and their organizations. The ones that you see cross your mind when I say they're going to look at you and go, I don't want to change anything. This is fine. Everything's fine. I don't want anything different. I don't need to learn anything else. Pick the ones out of that group that intimidate you the least. Recruit them. Because if you can win him over, if you can get her on your team, it's going to make the rest of your job easier if we're starting with something new. Lay that groundwork, right? You're the one that has this information and the knowledge, and you don't want to just throw it out there and say, here you go, because no one's going to use it or they're going to misuse it. So go talk to folks. One of my favorite questions to ask people anytime I do a requirements gathering session is to ask them what they love about their job. What do you do every day that you love? Or what do you not get to do enough of, but you love it, right? What are you doing that you just love? Identify the loves and don't break it, right? If you know that thing they love is going away, you need to work double, extra, triple hard to make sure you're giving them something that replaces it with the same kind of value, right? Because if you break what they love, they will never forgive you. What do they hate? That's my second favorite question. What do you have to deal with every day that drives you crazy? Number one thing that people have reported back to that is having to track people down to approve documents. Workflow, time for flow, right? Fix what they hate. Find a way to make life better for your people. Take those resources out there on blogs.microsoft.com and put them to use to make life better. So what if, okay, that stuff's great, but we've had SharePoint for a while and people aren't using it. Okay, why? Or why not? What's not working? What doesn't make sense to your people? That's a huge question to ask. So that guy you always talk to in the hall, or the people that know you by name because you've helped them with something before, those are your great first resources to reach out to and say, hey, I've noticed you guys really haven't been doing a lot with your SharePoint side. Is there something we could provide for you that could make it better? Or is there something you need? Have the conversation. And that may eventually lead you towards needing to provide training in your company. But there's some important questions there too, right? It's all about questions. It's all about asking questions. What kind of interest is there in your organization for training? Is it formal training? I spent 2 years straight, or every other week, I was on a different client site providing 4-day, 7-hour-long training sessions. It was an 8-pound book, literally 8-pound 3-ring binder book of SharePoint. And we started with the basics and we worked our way through. But that's not really what most people need, right? Some people may need help just learning the basics, take a while to digest it, and then build on that skill set. Or maybe a series of lunch and learns. Lunch and learns are very popular, right? Because you come in, you sit down, you get food, and you learn how to do things better. You learn how to make your life easier. Maybe formal classes works, right? We want to get people away from their email, away from the distractions of people coming and knocking on their door, and we want them just to sit down and absorb. There's a lot of value in that. Or maybe they know how to upload a document, We know how to put a column in a library, but we don't really know how to take what's in the file share, put it in SharePoint, and really build a true working department site. So maybe a workshop, hands-on in the environment, is what's needed at that point. So really popular training formats are some of those I just mentioned. Online or even face-to-face training for a dedicated number of hours. Lunch and learns. I can't tell you how many lunch and learns I delivered last year, most of them remotely, which was kind of sad because I knew everyone else was eating, but I was just kind of sitting here in my office with no food. So that was kind of sad for me, but they seemed to really enjoy it. Those document management workshops where we take your portal from scratch and turn it into something functional. Preferably that's done with a segment of a team, right? Not everybody in finance, but maybe just a few reps of finance to build it up. Video training is huge, right? Because you can go back over and over. You can sit your new hires in front of it and have them learn as they go. Custom training from your environment's even better because the terminology, the navigation, and the scenarios that are there are relatable. It's what they work with day in and day out. And there are third-party tools out there that give at your fingertips training and instruction. Combined Knowledge is one of our partners that provides that. Little canned snippets of how to upload a document, how to create a permissions group, little things like that. Find what works well for your culture. I promise you there's a way that training can be adapted for that. And maybe we can be at service. Paid Group, we offer all kinds of training, not just SharePoint, not just Office 365, developers, IT pros, administrators, your users of all experience levels. We can come in and help you, not to put the strong arm sales pitch on you, but these are a few examples in the tiles of areas of training that we have offered. That doesn't mean that's all there is, right? So if you come in and say, you know what, we really need to have some training on permissions, you know, Office 365 groups and SharePoint groups, how does all that work together? And we're trying to embrace OneDrive. Maybe you could help us with that. Because we know one size doesn't fit all. So if you are curious what we can offer, you know, there's a lot out there. Blended classes or app-specific classes. Really, all you would have to do is tell us what you need, and we can work with you to develop a training outline and a training plan that will meet that need. We're never going to come in and dictate to you what you need to know, right? That's your job. We want to enhance and help you. And I think the one thing to take away from all of this is going to be that knowing is half the battle, right? And when we know we're doing our job properly and efficiently, we've gained confidence because we've actually sat down and we've learned the new ways to work with Office 365, with SharePoint, with Teams, with Power Apps and Flow. You know, when you sit down and work with a IT professional, a SharePoint professional, we're going to give you insight into best practices. You know, we're not just there to tell you what to do. And we can be there to give you insight to some of the best ways to do it. We can have those best practice conversations face-to-face, over Skype or Teams. We can help you get your environment set up kind of the way it needs to be. We all know that SharePoint's a blank slate. That's the blessing and the curse of SharePoint. You open it up, you got shared documents. You got 3 or 4 columns in there. None of those 3 or 4 columns that's, you know, on display when you open a blank document library is going to capture the name of a department or an organization or an approver or the responsible party, right? It's blank. Our goal is to customize that canvas, to put color on it in the shade that fits our organization. We can help you do that. And after that, you can conquer the world. Now, for those of you that are of the same age as I am, you may remember G.I. Joe. After school, you'd watch it Saturday mornings, and they taught us that knowing is half the battle, and the other half are red lasers and blue lasers. Paid Group cannot provide the lasers, There are laws involved with that, but I mean, I know a lot of government organizations that use SharePoint and they manage lasers. So, you know, there are avenues to lasers even with SharePoint. That said, thank you again for coming. I hope we will see you next month on the Joy of SharePoint. I've got my Twitter handle up here on the screen. I tweet Office 365 stuff, blog posts. You'll be able to stay up to date on when the next webinar is. If you're of interest, please feel free to follow me. My email address is up there. If you have questions, you know, you're not obligated if you send an email, right? You are welcome to ask questions. And then our Pate Group information is on the screen as well, pategroup.com. We've got a link to the training services that we offer on the site, as well as blogs. And it's not just going to be end user blogs. Mark Rackley posts a good bit of blog content out there. Rob Windsor does. You know, all of us put time and effort into those blogs. And Combined Knowledge, again, I want to mention them. They offer some really good training resources as well that can tie seamlessly into your environment. Literally point and click as you're in SharePoint, and information can be there to help your users. So again, thank you. I tried to keep this relatively short so I'm not eating up your entire lunch break. If anyone does have any questions, again, you're welcome to ask them in the question pane. Looks like you've been pretty quiet so far today. And you're also welcome to send emails, or you can find me on Twitter. Mark and Stephanie, if you guys had anything you wanted to add, please do feel free.
No, I think you did a good job. I have nothing to add to that.
Well, thank you, sir. I think my voice is starting to go. All right, thank you again, guys. This video or the recording of this will be posted on YouTube. We'll also tweet out a link to it. So if you're not on Twitter, it's time to join. Thank you so much.